Patrick was a United States Marine Corps fighter pilot, a Top Gun graduate, and Instructor Pilot of the Year. He's served 12 years on active duty, 15 years in the reserves. After leaving active duty, he decided to start his own company as an executive consultant and organizational development leader. And he's worked with multiple Fortune 100, 500 firms. And he's going to soon celebrate his 1-year anniversary of starting his own company, Strategic Leadership Consultant. So Patrick, welcome.
You know, the one thing that has carried me through not only my military career, but business career as well, has been this word that everybody sees on the screen right now, and that's the debrief. And now more than ever, in the current environment, teams need to be debriefing. They need to be debriefing regularly because it is really the key to communication. It opens up those lines of communication. It's also a very valuable tool to allow teams to pivot, especially in a crisis environment. If you have a debriefing culture established, you're able to understand or figure out what's going on, what you need to do differently, and do it very rapidly and not be caught in maybe some of the standards or procedures that you used before. So that's really what we're going to talk about, is debriefing today, and why it is a key to communication, and not just the process, because Bob, there's lots of processes out there, right? But there's also an art form to pull this off as well. So we're going to touch on both those. We're going to talk about the process, but also what is required to make sure that process works. So Bob, I'm actually going to jump in to what really will become the first poll question, and that is, why do people avoid debriefing? Why don't teams debrief more than they do, which is in some cases not at all? But why do we want to debrief? There's only one reason, and that's just to improve our future performance. And we just don't debrief negatives. We debrief positives as well, because a debrief is a teaching and a learning opportunity. It's absolutely, that's it. Teaching and learning opportunity. A debrief is not a place, where Bob, you would take your kids to Chuck E. Cheese and play whack-a-mole and hit people on the head, right? That's not the purpose. It's to teach, it's to learn, it's to share an experience and to move on, but do it in a safe environment. So I started thinking about it. I'm like, as a fighter pilot, the first day I walked in the door, we were debriefing. It was just something I grew up with, if you will. And it's carried me all the way through. And I started thinking, where does everybody else learn about debriefing? So I went to that one source we all know, which is Webster, and went, well, what is Webster's definitions? And the first definition they came up with was, a debrief is something to interrogate someone such as a pilot, usually upon return as from a mission, in order to obtain useful information. Bob, I can tell you, if I got interrogated every time I came back from a flight, I would have quit flying a long time ago, right? In fact, interrogation was only something if I didn't come back to my base, if I ended up in someone else's base, right? The second definition, they say to officially question someone about a job that has been done. Well, that's a little bit better of a definition. The officially part kind of makes me a little nervous. I mean, Bob, that sounds like you're getting subpoenaed on something, right? Yeah, so I don't really like that one. And actually, the third one's the best one. It's to carefully review upon completion. If you can spell the word debrief, then you know what the process is. And that's what we're going to talk about today, and then some of the nuances in that. So first one is, you got to decide to debrief. We'll talk about that. You got to have the right environment. Third step is just brief the results. And we'll get into that just a little bit, because sometimes that's difficult. You do a root cause analysis, not a review. Identify best practices, execute on them, and then follow up. And just not on the best practices, but with the team itself. And we'll get into that as well. So let's go ahead and start talking about this. First of all,